Hey, welcome to Germany from the couch.
Today we're diving into something that's really shifted the way people think about shopping, not just here, but globally.
We are talking about the massive, and I mean massive, rise of the secondhand market.
It really is more than just a trend, isn't it? It feels like a fundamental change in consumer psychology.
Totally. For decades, the message was always buy new, especially in, say, booming economies or high status cultures, maybe in parts of Asia.
Yeah.
New equals status.
Right, but that script has been completely flipped. Buying used has gone from being this, signal of financial distress
Yeah.
to actually being seen as smart shopping.
Absolutely. And you see it everywhere. Major economies are struggling, inflation is high, and people are just becoming way more conservative with their money.
Yeah.
I mean, here in Germany, retailers are always talking about how holiday spending is down. You even hear stories about families and friends exchanging secondhand gifts now.
And that's a perfect entry point for this whole discussion
Yeah.
because that conservatism, it's not just about the wallet, though that's a huge part of it.
It's about values.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really unpack the why behind this thrift trend. We're going to look at why used items are not just accepted, but actively sought out, especially in a place like Germany.
Okay, so let's start with the most obvious reason. The cold, hard economic reality. I mean, at the end of the day, if something is cheaper, people are going to at least look at it, right?
It's the gateway, for sure. Price sensitivity is still, a decisive factor. The perception of used goods has just done a complete 180.
From being stigmatized.
Stigmatized as something for the poor to now being this global economic powerhouse since really the early 2000s.
And we have data to back this up. When researchers looked into the motives for online secondhand shopping, the whole category of just saving expenses was, what, about a fifth of all purchases?
Yeah, just about 21%. But
Yeah.
what's really interesting is when you dig into that number, it's not one single thing.
Yeah.
It's almost split down the middle between people who are actively bargain hunting, for the thrill of the find, and people who are just working with a small available budget.
So it's both the resourceful shopper and the shopper who's, well, struggling.
Exactly. And there's another submotive in there that I think is super relatable.
Let me guess. Fashion.
You got it. The ability to follow fashion trends on a budget. Almost 30% of people in that group basically admit they still want to be a fashion victim. They just don't want the financial hangover.
That is the ultimate consumer hack. It really shows how destigmatized this has all become. In a place like Germany, which has this deep-rooted appreciation for quality and things that last, it's just seen as practical. It's resourceful, not shameful.
And that pragmatic streak leads us right into the deeper cultural acceptance you see here. It goes beyond the wallet.
Yeah, it becomes about values. In a lot of other consumer cultures, buying a new outfit for a holiday or a new piece of furniture, that's how you show respect or status. Here, it feels like the pride comes from making something good last.
Oh, absolutely. And what's really fascinating is how that manifests on like a local level.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Verschenken boxes in Berlin?
Oh, I love those. It's like a little community treasure hunt. You'll see perfectly good stuffed books, dishes, sometimes a whole cabinet just sitting on the street with a sign that says to give away.
It's incredible, isn't it? And it's such a stark contrast to places where that stuff might just go straight into the trash, maybe because of a stigma about taking something someone else didn't want.
Or just different habits around waste.
It highlights a core cultural difference, I think. You're not thinking this is waste. You're thinking this is now part of a shared resource pool. It's resource preservation just built right into the city.
And that practical, values-driven behavior has been put on steroids by digital convenience.
Oh, 100%. The growth of modern platforms is the crucial next piece of the puzzle.
You have to talk about platforms like Vinted.
You do. Vinted is such a perfect example because it caters to one of those resource-intensive groups out there. Families with young kids.
So true. It's become the ultimate hunting ground for parents. In the past, getting hand-me-downs or grace items, as they're sometimes called, you had to have family or friends with slightly older kids.
Right. It was all about your personal network.
But Vinted it democratized the whole system. Now anyone can find great, affordable stuff for their kids. Clothes, books, toys, everything.
And that online experience adds the incredibly powerful motive of convenience. That accounts for, what, almost 17% of the motivation?
Because, let's be honest, not many people want to spend a Saturday afternoon rummaging through a dusty, cluttered shop anymore.
No more dusty hands. The key driver for that online convenience and almost half the people cited this, is simply the power of search and filter functions.
It makes it feel like normal online shopping.
Exactly. Fast, targeted, painless. The algorithms even give you personalized suggestions, so it goes from being a hunt to just inspiration.
Okay, so we've got saving money and environmental values, and both are supercharged by the convenience of online platforms. That sounds like a solid foundation.
It is.
But if we go back to that research, none of those are actually the single biggest driver, are they?
That's the twist. If it's so cheap and convenient, you'd think saving expenses would be number one. But it's not.
So what is?
The answer is individualism. It clocks in as the primary motive at nearly 40%.
40%? Wow. Okay, unpack that for me. How is buying something used, something you didn't design, an act of individualism?
Well, it's fueled by two things. The desire to express one's own identity and the need for differentiation through unique clothing. When you buy secondhand, you are actively hunting for pieces that, no one else has.
I see. So it's a direct rebellion against the mass-produced cookie-cutter look of fast fashion.
Precisely.
When a brand floods the market with millions of identical cheap tops, the only way to really stand out is to go vintage or find something unique that's been pre-owned.
It's the antidote to ubiquity. And that's why it's so tightly linked with Gen Z, not just here, but globally. From Berlin to Taipei. This is a generation that grew up with social media, where self-portrayal is everything.
So buying secondhand becomes kind of conspicuous consumption. But instead of showing off wealth,
You're showing off values. You're signaling to your peers that you care about ecological and ethical standards. It visually sets you apart. It's status signaling, but the currency is morality and uniqueness, not the price tag.
and this must get accelerated on platforms like TikTok with all the haul videos.
Dramatically. The study says the desire for individualism is exacerbated in these networks. It pushes people to find even more extreme or rare vintage styles just to keep that unique identity in a really crowded digital space.
It really does paint a clear picture of a huge generational value shift. Millennials and Gen Z are prioritizing access over ownership, quality over novelty.
And transparency over just the lowest price. They've created this anti-establishment trend that's ironically become so successful it's now the new mainstream.
And you know what happens when a trend goes mainstream?
The corporations can't ignore it anymore.
Right. So now we've got the giants, your H&Ms, Zalandos, About You's all jumping into the resale game. What happens when the disruptor becomes the establishment?
Well, skepticism happens. A lot of it.
Yeah.
Their entry validates the market for sure, but it also brings intense scrutiny. They market it all under the banner of sustainability.
Which immediately raises accusations that they're just exploiting the trend for new sales.
Of course. And this brings up a really crucial concept, the indulgence trade.
Okay, what's that exactly?
It's the idea that a company, or an individual even, soothes their conscience by making one small, visible, sustainable choice, like launching a secondhand line.
While continuing to churn out massive volumes of fast fashion everywhere else.
You got it. So you buy one vintage dress, feel good about it, and then buy 6 cheap, disposable tops from their main brand. You've traded your conscience for convenience, and you've allowed the corporation to greenwash its entire business model.
So their secondhand sub-brands are seen as a pretty clear form of greenwashing then. A way to monetize the ideals of young people without actually changing their own wasteful practices.
That's the core criticism. And we really can't lose sight of the scale of the problem here. Globally, something like only 1% of the 92 million tons of fibers produced in a year get recycled back into new fibers.
1%. That's a catastrophic amount of waste. And it's finally leading to some real regulatory action, at least here in Europe.
The EU's response is monumental, actually. The Waste Framework Directive is forcing all member states to have separate collection for textile waste by 2025. And it introduces something called Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR.
EPR sounds technical. Why is that such a big deal?
Because it completely shifts the blame and the cost. Under EPR, the manufacturers and importers have to cover the cost for managing the product's entire life cycle. Recycling, disposal, all of it.
So they finally have a direct financial incentive to make clothes that actually last longer, are easier to repair, and simpler to recycle.
Because they own the waste stream now. It's a fundamental push towards a real circular economy inside Europe. But, and this is a big but.
This is where the global complexity comes in.
It really does. While Europe is trying to clean up its own act, we can't ignore where a massive chunk of our used textiles still ends up. In 2019, 41% of the EU's exported used textiles went to Asia.
And it's not all for resale in vintage strips over there, is it?
Far from it. A lot of it gets sent to these huge sorting hubs, but it ultimately gets downgraded. It becomes rags or stuffing,
Yeah.
or it gets re-exported to markets in Africa or South America that just can't handle the volume.
So it becomes massive, unchecked textile waste piles somewhere else.
Right. Europe's focus on its domestic circularity is necessary, but it doesn't solve the global problem. For a lot of items, it just relocates it.
That puts such a critical context around this whole boom. It shows that while our individual motives are good, individualism, saving money, sustainability, the bigger systemic problems need these huge corporate and legislative shifts like EPR.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But the destigmatization of used goods, that's permanent. We were not going back. We're moving towards a culture that values access and quality over just novelty.
So, what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Our deep dive shows this huge shift to secondhand is really driven by that search for your own identity and, of course, the desire to save money.
Yeah, with convenience and sustainability acting as these really powerful boosters.
So, if you're thinking about your next purchase, whether you're scrolling through Vinted or checking out a local flea market here in Berlin, remember the real innovation now isn't just about the bargain.
That's right. The true prize is finding that one-of-a-kind piece that expresses who you are and sets you apart from the fast fashion crowd. That's the real treasure hunt in this modern circular economy.
We hope this gave you some new perspective on the clothes in your closet and maybe the stuff you see on the street.
We'd love to hear what you think, so feel free to leave a comment. We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.